Back when President Obama was still candidate Barack Obama, he had plenty of despised Republican policies to run against that would fire up the base. Liberals didn't just hate President Bush. They saw him for the threat he was, and really he was a threat to the most basic American principles of justice and decency and fair play. So candidate Obama, with apparent conviction, promised voters that if they elected him, he would end his predecessor's abuses of power. Really, he promised. Here's Mr. Obama in August 2007.
We'll also reject a legal framework that does not work. There has been only one conviction at Guantanamo. It was for a guilty plea on material support for terrorism. The sentence was 9 months long. There has not been one conviction of a terrorist act. I have faith in America's courts, and I have faith in our JAGs. As president, I will close Guantanamo, reject the Military Commissions Act, and adhere to the Geneva Conventions.
I like that guy. Close Guantanamo. No more torture. That same day, Mr. Obama pledged to end the illegal wiretapping and surveillance of Americans.
No more national security letters to spy on citizens who are not suspected of a crime. No more tracking citizens who do nothing more than protest a misguided war. No more ignoring the law when it is inconvenient. That is not who we are.
Yeah, no more of that because I said so and I'm the president thing. Out went Mr. Bush, of course, and in came Mr. Obama, who on just his second day in office signed a series of executive orders banning torture and secret dissensions and calling for Guantanamo to close in a year. A new day had dawned in America. Except that 18 months later, that new day looks disturbingly like the old one. The prison at Guantanamo is still very much open for business. The administration has been holding suspects indefinitely in another prison near the Bagram Air Base in Afghanistan. And this White House has expanded the terrorist watch list, argued for indefinite detention, and gone after whistleblowers, and on and on and on. Today, a new report from the American Civil Liberties Union suggests that instead of ending President Bush's worst abuses, President Obama may be on the road to enshrining them. Quote, there is a very real danger that the Obama administration will preside over the creation of a new normal. President Obama, the candidate of change, turns out to be doing what American presidents nearly always do, especially in times of war. They expand executive power and they fight like hell to keep from giving it back. When one administration hands the reins to another, especially of a different party, those powers become durable, even permanent. They become bedrock. Joining us now to talk about why is Jameel Jaffer, director of the ACLU's National Security Project. Thank you so much for being here, Jameel.
Thank you.
Okay, because I'm a look on the bright side guy, what do you think sort of are the high points of the civil liberties record in this 18-month review you guys have conducted?
Well, there are high points, and I think that we actually went out of our way in the report to point out the high points. Some of them happened in the very first days of the administration. There were the executive orders that disavowed torture, that shut down the detention centers, the CIA's detention centers, that committed to closing Guantanamo within a year, which obviously is not a promise that they were able to keep. But still, I think that they meant it when they said it, and they tried. And those were all good things. Later on, they released the torture memos, and we characterized that in the report as evincing a historic commitment to transparency. So we try to give them credit where credit is due. The bigger argument of the report, though, is that in many, many areas, what you see when you step back from the individual decisions that the administration has made, what you see is an entrenchment of a pattern that was started under the Bush administration.
Okay, so what are those areas? I mean, and where are they most egregious, where you see this kind of entrenchment?
Well, the places we identify, we point to the indefinite detention policy, the endorsement of indefinite detention.
And when you say that, just to be clear, endorsement of indefinite detention in briefs filed by the government as a matter of policy?
That's right. I think what's happened is that the Obama administration has abandoned the rhetoric of the global war on terror, but it has not abandoned the arguments that were underneath that rhetoric. And that's true when it comes to indefinite detention. If you look at the arguments that the administration has made in court, they're making the same statutory arguments that the Bush administration was making in its last days in office. If you look to Guantanamo, it's true that the administration has committed to close Guantanamo, but one of the ways they're proposing to close Guantanamo is to open a new detention center inside the United States, in Illinois. And that detention center would hold prisoners indefinitely without charge or trial. So ultimately what would happen is you would shut down the prison, but you would enshrine the principle of indefinite detention. So that's another area that we point to.
when you map this out, if you sort of plot it against time, right, and sort of good stuff and bad stuff, it seems like that moment when they released CIA documents and the OLC memos, and there was the big sort of Cheney backlash and all this kind of interplay, Cheney versus Obama. Obama made that speech in the National Archives. That seems like the last moment you can point to when they were making these kind of courageous pro-civil liberties decisions, and everything since there has been kind of a steady downward trend.
Yeah, I mean, I think that is largely true, although I don't think it's entirely true. I mean, we point in the report to the decision by the State Department to reverse the ideological exclusions of Tariq Ramadan and Adam Habib. That was a relatively recent decision. It was a decision that this administration made after carefully considering federal court decisions that had questioned the basis for those exclusions. But that was a relatively big deal and something that the administration did recently. But again, if you sort of step back from the individual decisions that the administration is making every day, and you look at the broader trend, there really is what appears to be a kind of entrenchment of the global war on terror. The same policies on indefinite detention, the same endorsement of the military commissions with some changes at the margins, but still the use of military commissions where we should be using
systems of justice. You can try some people in regular federal court, and then if you can't get a conviction there, you put them in this military commissions.
Right, and then you actually have a third system, which isn't a system of justice at all, which is the indefinite detention, right? And then the administration has also expanded the Bush administration's targeted killing program. And in some ways, that's the most alarming of any of these policies. It's a program under which the administration asserts the authority to kill people abroad, including U.S. citizens abroad, without charge, without trial, without due process of any kind. It's a big deal. And that's something that's being expanded by this administration. So, again, we try to give them credit where credit is due, but we also want to try to convince them to correct their course, because they're only 18 months into this administration. There's still time to change those policies, and we hope that the report will encourage them to do that.
You can read the report at aclu.org. Jameel Jaffer, he's the director of the National Security Project at the ACLU. Thanks so much for coming in. Really appreciate it. Coming up on Countdown, you know the conversation about race we were supposed to have after last week's appalling Shirley Sherrod fiasco? We are definitely not having it. Pulitzer Prize-winning columnist Eugene Robinson is their guest. And coming up on this show, cocaine and crack. Why the punishment for selling one is not even remotely the same as the punishment for selling the other. A baby step towards justice in the war on drugs. Up next.